Shabbat Shalom, family. Glory and honor to our Father Yahweh, the creator of heaven and earth, the sea, and all that in them is, the giver of the covenant. Glory and honor to his name. And to Messiah, Yahweh Shah, who is the covenant made flesh. Yahweh Shah, who is the Messiah, the anointed one of the Father, the soon returning King, and who is at this moment interceding on behalf of his people to overcome sin and be sealed in the Father's righteousness. Glory and honor to Father Yahweh. Glory and honor to Messiah, Yahweh Shah. Greetings to the 12 tribes scattered throughout the four corners of the earth, who are now awakening to who their God is and coming back to him and to his covenant. Greetings to the 144,000 who are the forerunners of the return of Messiah and the calling of his people out of Babylon. Greetings to the precious ones from among the Gentiles who have already begun to answer the call of the Spirit of the Father and Messiah, and have through the blood of Messiah been grafted into the chosen ones, the apple of the Father's eye, the Lion of the tribe of Judah. Greetings. Greetings to the chat, Brother Larry Walker, Brother Diamond Holdings, Brother Superstar, Brother Waves, Yafi, Brother Gary Joseph, Isha Shama, Sister Wade, Brother Castle King, Brother Brandon Beckman and his family, Brother Stephen Kelly, Arkawan Banya, Sister Daniels and Brother Daniels. Greetings to all of you. Praise the Most High. Brother Gary Joseph and Brother Yacoba arrived safely to our home, and we have had a beautiful fellowship so far. Praise the Most High. I'd like to ask for prayer for Brother Daniels, who asked for prayer. He is still experiencing pain. He had a stroke a few years ago, and he is still experiencing pain in his legs and in his feet. We ask for prayer on his behalf to the Father Yah, that the Father Yah would bring healing to him, and that whatever the Father Yah would request of him to do, he would do it by the grace of the Father Yah and by the power of the Spirit. Amen. So we're praying for Brother Daniels in that regard. Also, continue to pray for the trip that my wife and I are beginning to plan to London for the baptism of Brother Mark and the baptism of Brother David Harriet. Let's continue to pray about that, whether we should go or not. And of course, our Memorial Day weekend. And we do have to get together. It's been such a crazy week. Brother Yacoba and Brother Gary Joseph could bear witness. Today was a typical day of this week for my wife and I, and it was a crazy day today, and they could bear witness. So it's been very crazy for us, but we're looking to have a meeting. I really want to try to get together with all of the brothers and sisters interested in coming to Memorial Day weekend by next Shabbat, maybe Saturday evening of next week. So we could, at some point, either Saturday evening or during that weekend. It's a 3-day weekend for us, and maybe for some of y'all, it's a 3-day weekend. So we will be able to be more ready. My wife and I are hoping that things are settled down in our lives with my dad and everything a little bit, and then we can have a meeting and go over our plans for Memorial Day weekend next week. Praise the Most High Yahweh for that. Yes, please pray for Brother Daniels and the Daniels family. And yes, and Brother Gary Joseph and Brother Yacoba baptized me today. It was the first time that I have been baptized at least 2 other times, but I was baptized in Christianity as an awakened Hebrew. This is the first time that I was baptized, and I was baptized by 2 Hebrew brothers. Praise the Most High. And I couldn't have asked for such a blessing than to be baptized by these 2 brothers today. And so we praise the Most High for that. So yeah, it was a blessing. And I was baptized for myself and for my dad today. Praise the Most High. Yeah, that was a great blessing. So we're continuing our study in the chapter 11 of the book of Revelation. I want to go into it, and there's a lot of scriptures to cover. And there is something in this chapter that I do not understand yet, and I don't want to guess about it, but we're going to go over it anyway. We don't skip anything. We don't uh, we don't know everything, and we don't guess about anything. So let's go first to Revelation chapter 11 itself. And we're going to, from there, branch out into other scriptures. Because as we have learned from studying the book of Revelation, all of the Hebrew prophets of the Bible, particularly what's called the Old Testament, converge in the book of Revelation. Particularly, we see with the prophet Daniel, but not just Daniel, of course. We've seen Moses, we've seen Ezekiel, and we've seen other prophets, Isaiah. We've seen other prophets represented in the book of Revelation, and we're going to see more of that. But I want to start off, because we have read chapter 11 somewhat, and I want to start off in there, and I want to go through more than what we have read before in our last few studies. So we're going to read, this is the sixth trumpet. And if you understand what we have studied so far in the six trumpets, we understand that these trumpets are representing warnings to the people whose prayers are being rejected. Remember, the angel took the censer that's supposed to represent the prayers of the saints and cast it to the earth, and the seven trumpets began to sound. And so the trumpets are always representative, as we know, both the Messiah's voice and in the country and the nation of Israel, but by the watchman, it's always represented as a warning of something to come. And so here is the warnings from the Most High to those people whose prayers are not being heard. Now, in the sixth trumpet, we saw the 144,000 in the form of the Messiah's call to the prophets of the little book of Daniel. We saw that being introduced because even in the midst of the trumpets, the Father is calling people out of Babylon. So from the midst of peoples that are going to be lost, whose prayers are not being heard. And brothers and sisters, you can believe that right now we're living in that time where the majority of people's prayers are not being heard. But, and I know very few would believe that, but we are reading it in the word of the Most High. But there are those that belong to the Father, and he knows who they are. In fact, let's read a couple of scriptures about that before we get started here. First of all, let's read a couple of scriptures about that. There's those that belong to the Father, and Paul writes about them in Ephesians. First of all, let's look at Ephesians, and we talk about, and both of these witnesses are Paul, by the way. But and we could get others, obviously, but I just want to start off with these. These are the first two that came to my mind. These two witnesses. Ephesians chapter 1. Ephesians chapter 1. The Father Spirit always guides me, and praise the Most High. And so I started to go to Revelation 11, and the Father said, no, not yet. So here we go. Ephesians chapter 1. Ephesians chapter 1. And I'm going to begin at verse 1. Ephesians chapter 1, from verse 1. And I'm going to go down to verse 10. Yes. From verse 1, actually from verse 1 down to verse 11. Ephesians chapter 1, from verse 1 to verse 11. Notice what it says. Paul, an apostle of Messiah Yahushua, by the will of Yah, to the saints which are at Ephesus, and to the faithful in Messiah Yahushua. Grace be to you and peace from Yahweh, our Father, and from the Master, Yahushua, the Messiah. Blessed be the Father and Most High of the Master, Yahushua, the Messiah, who hath blessed us with all spiritual blessings in heavenly places in Messiah, according as he hath chosen us in him before the foundation of the world, that we should be holy and without blame before him in love. So you can see here that we are blessed in Messiah. Why is that? Again, Messiah is perfection. Messiah is the Father's word made flesh. Messiah is a representation of the Father's perfect righteousness. And so when the Father hears you and I prayer, the only reason he hears the prayer of you and I is because he sees us in Messiah. See, so that's why he says here, he has chosen us in him. So he has chosen us to be his. The Father has chosen us to be his in the perfection that is Messiah. He don't hear you and I just by ourselves. He hears us inside his Son who stands before him on our behalf. So he hath chosen us in the Messiah before the foundation of the earth. Okay. And then verse 5, having predestinated us unto the adoption of children by Yahushua Messiah to himself, according to the good pleasure of his will. So, Father, from before he founded the earth, already knew us, already chose us in Messiah, and already predestinated his people to be his, coming through Messiah. Now, that's not the end of the story, obviously, because Messiah is the high priest on our behalf for the purpose of us overcoming all our sin. The Father doesn't look at us directly because of our sin, but he has set his Son on our behalf. Father set the Son on our behalf so that he can see us in his Son. And then when that ministry is over, the Son will step from between us and the Father will then look on his predestinated people, and what will he see? He will see the perfection of his own righteousness in us. Does that make sense? You're following that. So now he's chosen us in Messiah from before the foundation of the earth. And then in verse 6, to the praise and glory of his grace. So this will show the greatness of the Father's grace. Okay, so the greatness of his grace will be shown by setting forth Messiah on our behalf, seeing us in Messiah, and then when Messiah is finished as the high priest on the Day of Atonement, he will see us in the perfect righteousness that he sees in his Son. And that righteousness having been formed in us will be an example of the greatness of the Father's grace. It's deep, isn't it? I know it's powerful, but it's simple, right? Praise the Most High. So to the praise of the glory of his grace, wherein he hath made us accepted in the beloved. Messiah is the beloved. He has made us accepted in the beloved. This is my only begotten Son. This is my beloved Son in whom I am well pleased. Remember, he said that. This is my beloved Son in whom I am well pleased. Well, he has made us accepted in the beloved. Praise the Most High. In whom we have redemption through his blood, the forgiveness of sins according to the riches of his grace, wherein he hath abounded toward us in all wisdom and prudence, having made known unto us the mystery of his will, according to his good pleasure, which he hath purposed in himself, that in the dispensation of the fullness of times he might gather together in one all things in Messiah, both which are in heaven and which are in earth, even in him. So Messiah is representing the fullness of the Father in bodily form. And so the Father accepts everything in heaven and earth in the Messiah. Okay? In whom we have obtained an inheritance, being again, and use the word again, being predestinated according to the purpose of him who worketh all things after the counsel of his own will, that we should be to the praise of his glory, who first trusted in Messiah. Praise the Father, Yah. So he is accepting us in Messiah, and he is transforming us through the operation of this ministry in the Messiah. And as he said, he predestinated us. He has chosen us. And in fact, again, let's go back to Deuteronomy for our second witness in this, since we're using Paul for a witness. Let's go back to Deuteronomy for our second witness in this regard. In Deuteronomy chapter, and again, so we go to Moses now, Deuteronomy chapter 32. Deuteronomy chapter 32. And again, I love this verse because it shows again the predestination of his chosen people. So in Deuteronomy chapter 32, beginning at verse 7 and going down to verse 9, Deuteronomy chapter 32 from verse 7 to verse 9, remember the days of old, consider the years of many generations. Ask thy father, and he will show thee, thy elders, and they will tell thee, when the Most High divided to the nations their inheritance. When he separated the sons of Adam, he set bounds of the people according to the number of the children of Israel. For Yahweh's portion is his people. Jacob is the lot of his inheritance. So he has predestinated us to be his people, to be his own inheritance. Now he has other nations. He said he set bounds for the other nations, but he has chosen us as the apple of his eye. And here, Paul is talking to Ephesian converts to the Hebrew Israelite Messiah. And that's the truth. See, most people don't look at it that way, but that's the truth, what I just said. Paul is writing this letter of Ephesians to Ephesians who are both Gentiles by blood and Israelites that dwelled among Gentiles, who are all converted to the Messiah, and the Messiah is the Hebrew Israelite of the tribe of Judah. See, when you're talking about Christianity, they put that right out. But that's the truth, what I just told you. Messiah is not a Christian, nor did he create a religion called Christianity. He is a Hebrew, and he will always be a Hebrew. He will forever be the Lion of the tribe of Judah, the King of the house of Jacob, according to the scriptures. He will forever be that. So here is what Paul is writing to. And he's saying to these brothers and these sisters, you are predestined in Messiah. Okay, let's go now. I want to go to 2 Timothy. 2 Timothy chapter 2. 2 Timothy chapter 2. I'm going to begin at I'm just going to read actually verse 19. 2 Timothy chapter 2, verse 19. Nevertheless, the foundation of Yahweh standeth sure, having this seal. Yahweh knoweth them that are his. Let everyone that nameth the name of Messiah depart from iniquity. So again, the Father knows who are his, and the people that belong to him will make use of the Messiah to overcome sin and depart from iniquity. And they do that by the Father's Spirit that draws us to the Messiah. That Messiah can present us to the Father in himself. Does that make sense? So the Father's Spirit draws us, and that's what the Messiah said. No man can come to me except my Father draw him. Does that make sense? So the Father's Spirit draws us and draws us to the Messiah for the purpose that we can come to the Father in Messiah. And the Father can perfect us through Messiah. And we can overcome sin, departing from iniquity. Again, we're talking about Messiah as our high priest. Therefore, we know we're dealing with Israel because only Israel received a high priest. Okay, only the Moses law ordained a high priest. Only Moses law ordained a sanctuary. So if you're talking about a high priest, you're talking about Israel and those in the midst of Israel, which is why he's writing to Ephesians, he's writing to Timothy, he's writing to the Philippians, He's not writing to Christian churches. He's writing to converts to the Hebrew Messiah, followers of the way. Okay, now what does that have to do with Revelation 11? The call is to the people that are predestined to be part of the kingdom. If you are here, or if you, let me even put it better. If you are being called by the Spirit of the Father, if you are hungering for his righteousness and wanting his word, if you are desirous of overcoming your sin for the glory of the Father, that did not come from you naturally. That is something that was placed in you before the foundation of the earth. That was something that the Father has used to call you when he knew you before you were born. I know it's deep, but it's true. There are those that have been called by the Father before they began to exist. Now, let's go to Revelation chapter 11, and let's look closely at the two witnesses. And there's a lot of angles to this, so I'm just going to hit a few of them so not to confuse everybody, okay? So let's start again in chapter 11 of the book of Revelation. I'm going to begin at verse 1, and I'm going to read down to verse 9, okay? This is Revelation chapter 11 from verse 1 to verse 9. And there was given unto me a reed like unto a rod. And the angel stood saying, Rise and measure the temple of Yahweh and the altar and them that worship therein. Again, we start off with the 7 trumpets, and people weren't worshiping inside. Their prayers were being rejected. So here in the 6th trumpet, he's saying, first, measure the people that are worshiping inside the temple, whose prayers are being heard. Measurement is always a measure of perfection. That's what measurement means. Measure of perfection in the Bible. When they talk about measuring something, some people, somebody, it's a measurement based on a perfect yardstick. So he said, measure the temple and the people that worship therein. Then he says, but the court, which is without the temple, leave out and measure it not, for it is given unto the Gentiles. It is given unto the Gentiles. That's right, the plumb line. Excellent. Beautiful. That's exactly right. So he says, it is given unto the Gentiles. And so we saw in the beginning of the 7 trumpets, the prayers not being heard. These are considered the Gentiles. Now, not to say all Gentiles are lost. I want to reassure our Gentile brethren, but there are majority for sure is going to be lost, right? So measure is given to the Gentiles, and the holy city shall they tread underfoot 40 and 2 months. Now, we're going to see some parallels here. When the Messiah walked the earth as a man to become the sacrifice for the sins of Israel, when he walked the earth as a man and he came to Jerusalem, here's a question, your first question of the evening, your first test question. When Messiah walked the earth as a man and he walked through the land of Judea and he walked into the city of Jerusalem, was Jerusalem controlled by the Hebrews or the Gentiles? So when Messiah walked the earth for 33 and a half years, was Judea under the control of the Hebrews or the Gentiles? It was totally under the control of the Gentiles. So can I say that the holy city was being trodden underfoot by the Gentiles? Can we say that? So when Messiah walked the earth, the Gentiles ruled Jerusalem. Okay. You're going to see in a few seconds, we're going to read the rest of these verses I asked you us to read. the parallel of what we're reading and the Messiah's existence on earth. Ready? That's the first one. Let's continue. Now, 42 months is 3.5 years. 12 months in a year, 3 years is 36 months. 36 months plus 6 months is 42 months. So 42 months is 3.5 years, 1,260 days. Okay. And I will give power unto my 2 witnesses, and they shall prophesy 1,260 days, clothed in sackcloth. So the Messiah began his ministry at age 30. How do I know that? This is Luke chapter 3, I want to say. Luke chapter 3. I believe it's Luke chapter 3. Let's go to Luke chapter 3. And let's read these very simple verses. I'm going to start at verse 21 and go down to verse 23. This is Luke chapter 3 from verse 21 to 23. Okay. Now, when all the people were baptized, it came to pass that Yahushua also being baptized and praying, the heaven was opened, and the Holy Ghost descended in a bodily shape like a dove upon him. And a voice from heaven which said, Thou art my beloved Son, in whom I am well pleased. And Yahushua himself began to be about 30 years of age. So his ministry began, he was baptized, and his ministry began, he was age 30. Y'all see that? Did I make that up, or is that right there in the scriptures? He was 30 years of age when his ministry began. Okay? Which means it was his birthday. Which means it was his birthday. Okay. And I can tell you what, it wasn't December 25th. And let's go to Daniel. Daniel chapter 9 and verse 27. Daniel chapter 9 and verse 27. This is an amazing verse, actually. Daniel chapter 9 and verse 27. Talking about Messiah. Daniel 9:27. And this is talking about Messiah. And he shall confirm the covenant with many for 1 week. And in the midst of the week, he shall cause sacrifice and oblation to cease. And for the overspreading of abominations, he shall make it desolate, even until the consummation, and that determined shall be poured upon the desolate. So he shall confirm. This word confirm, by the way, and I think this is the only time that form of this word confirm is in the Bible. It's just right here. And it means to prevail. It means to overcome. He shall cause the covenant to prevail. See, that looks different than the way people preach the ministry and death and resurrection of the Messiah. He shall cause the covenant. Christians will tell you the covenant's done away with. His here confirm means to prevail, to triumph. He shall cause the covenant to triumph for 1 week. And in the midst of the week, so in the midst of 7 is 3.5. Correct? Am my math off, or is that right? If I was to divide 7 into half, I would get 3.5 on each side. 3.5 times 2 is 7. So he shall cause sacrifice and oblation to cease 3.5 days into that week, which is 3.5 years. So if he began his ministry at the age of 30, you go 3 years and then 6 months, which brings you to April of the following year. So if you want to know when Messiah was born, all you got to do is go 6 months back from April. Or 6 months forward, which would take you either to late September or early October. That's when the Messiah was born. It was not December 25th. And he began his ministry, and 3.5 years later, he was crucified. So he preached for 3.5 years. And then 3.5 years after his death and resurrection, he had the covenant continue in his disciples. And why did they say the week? Why was the week? Because the Gabriel told Daniel 70 weeks are determined upon thy people. And in that last week, Messiah is going to come. So this was the last roundup for Israel before they would be finally scattered and placed into slavery. Y'all got that? So he confirmed the covenant with Israel for 7 years. First himself personally, and then through the apostles. Okay, for 7 years. For Israel only. Now, back to Revelation chapter 11. So let's go to verse 3. And it says, and I will give power unto my 2 witnesses, and they shall prophesy 1,260 days, clothed in sackcloth. So did Messiah prophesy for 3.5 years in sackcloth? In other words, was he openly accepted by the leadership of Israel for 3.5 years? Did the majority of the people receive him? No. So you can see the parallel. Here he also preached for 3.5 years, 42 months, clothed in sackcloth. So in this regard, the Messiah is an example of what the Bible is calling the 2 witnesses. And what was he witnessing? He shall confirm the covenant. He shall cause the covenant to prevail, the 2 tables of the covenant. In the beginning was the Word, and the Word was with God, and the Word was God, the same in the beginning with God. All things were made by him, and without him was not anything made that was made. Let's explain that. First of all, let's take it for what it says. The Father speaks his word. In the beginning was the Father's word. The earth came into existence by his word. In the beginning was his word. And the word was with him, because he's the Father. And the word was him, or the word represented him. Does that make sense, y'all? So far, so good? So when he speaks, it's his word and it represents him. Okay? All things were made by him. Without him was not anything made that was made. Then the Bible goes on to say, his word that represents him, that was him, was turned into flesh. So now you have his word. Then you have his word in bodily form. That's the Messiah. His word was made flesh and dwelt among us. And we beheld his glory. The glory as of the only begotten of the Father. So it's deeper than just Messiah, though Messiah is it, it's also his word. His word was him. His word is him. So the Messiah came and confirmed the word for 3.5 years. And then another 3.5 years. Does that make sense? He shall confirm the covenant with many for 1 week. And in the midst of the week, he shall cause sacrifice and oblation to cease. So the word was confirmed or prevailed through Messiah for 1 week. So much for doing away with the law. Instead, Messiah done away with man-made religion. That's what he did. He nailed man-made religion to the cross. He told the scribes and Pharisees, your rules about the Shabbat don't mean anything. The Sabbath wasn't made, for the good of man. I mean, man was made for the good of the Sabbath. The Sabbath was made for the good of man. Let me say it again. Man was not made for the good of the Sabbath. The Sabbath was made for the good of man. You don't change no rules and make no rules and think we got to wash when you say wash and eat when you say eat. Messiah said, we eat right now in the field on the Shabbat. They said, you shouldn't heal on the Shabbat. He said, the Son of Man is the master of the Shabbat because he is the word made flesh. So he came to confirm the Father's covenant. He brought the Father's covenant deeper. He told the people, your righteousness must exceed the righteousness of the scribes and Pharisees. He came to confirm, and the covenant through Messiah prevailed because the Messiah is the bodily representation of the Father's covenant. He was put to death, and then he rose from the dead by the power of the Father's word, never to die again. If you recall, he said, I am he that liveth and was dead, and behold, I am alive forevermore. Amen. And have the keys of hell and of death. This is the Father's word. This is the Father's word. It will never die. Okay, praise the Most High. Back to chapter 11 now. So from verse 3, and he shall give power, and I will give power to my 2 witnesses, and they shall prophesy 1,260 days, clothed in sackcloth. These are the 2 olive trees and the 2 candlesticks standing before the Most High of the earth. As we know, we looked at Zechariah 4, verse 6, where he said, not by might nor by power, but by my spirit. Everything that Messiah did was on behalf of his Father by the Spirit of the Father. Can we testify? Can we bear witness? That's what he said. He said, I don't do nothing on my own. I only do what my Father commands me. And we just read where when he was baptized, the Bible said the Spirit came down on him in bodily form. And the Father said, this is my beloved Son in whom I am well pleased. So not by might nor by power, but by my spirit. He said, this is the power of the Spirit being demonstrated. Remember, we were also talking about the 144,000. But we'll get to that. But now we're talking about the Messiah. Okay? Verse 5. If any man will hurt them, fire proceeded out of their mouth and devoured their enemies. If any man will hurt them, he must in this manner be killed. These have power to shut heaven, that it rain not in the days of their prophecy, and have power over waters to turn them to blood, and to smite the earth with all plagues as often as they will. And of course, in these acts that are being described here, we see Moses and Elijah. Elijah called fire from heaven, if you recall, to light his sacrifice. And when people came to hurt him, he called fire from heaven and destroyed them. Moses called for plagues on Egypt. If you recall, he had that rod in his hand from the Father with the authority of the Father, and he called for plagues. Now, both of these things were done, I think we can agree, not by them in the flesh in terms of just their own power, but by the Father's Spirit. The Father's Spirit working through these men to do what he commanded them to do. Does that make sense? Okay. Now, verse 7. And when they shall have finished their testimony, the beast that ascendeth out of the bottomless pit shall make war against them and shall overcome them and kill them. Now, this is the part I have to say I don't quite understand. I understand some of it, but I'm going to show you. Okay. Let's talk about the beast that rises out of the bottomless pit. And in this regard, when we're reading the book of Revelation, in this regard, we can see that there are some places of Revelation that you would think are out of order. In other words, what we're getting ready to read is about the beast that rises out of the bottomless pit that is talking about. It's in chapter 17. Yet it's being mentioned here in chapter 12. Okay. It's like when we read Daniel, you can see that there's some places of Daniel, like Daniel 7 and 8, and definitely 7 and 8, that took place before Belshazzar's death in chapter 5. See, so it's not always chronological, but you got to look for signs. So here's the sign in itself. It says, the beast that rises out of bottomless pit. So where you see that is in Revelation 17. First, let's read the scripture itself, the verse itself, and then let's go back and read it in context. Again, part of the problem with us coming out of Christianity, a lot of us, is we don't learn to read things in context. You might get stuck in a verse and you're focused on that verse, and you don't go ahead and read the whole thing in its context, nor do you read in context other verses from other parts of the Bible that might be similar, because that's how the Father Spirit lead us through the word. Okay, you got to read it in its context. Christians focus on the verse and try to create whole doctrines out of one verse. Never mind what the rest of the Bible might have to say about the subject, or even what it says in its own context. So we must read things in context. So let's first look at the beast that rises out of bottomless pit, and then let's go back and read it in context. Okay. So first, we're looking at Revelation chapter 17, verse 8. It's going to speak on this beast that rises out of the bottomless pit. Revelation chapter 17 and verse 8. Notice what it says, Revelation 17, 8. The beast that thou sawest was and is not, and shall ascend out of the bottomless pit and go into perdition. And they that dwell on the earth shall wonder, whose names were not written in the book of life from the foundation of the world, when they behold the beast that was and is not and yet is. So Revelation 17 is talking about a beast that rises out of the bottomless pit. Now, what does Daniel, here's your second quiz question of the night. You ready? Perdition means hell, destruction. Am I Prakash? That's a good question. It means eternal destruction. That's what perdition means. Eternal destruction, like a destruction from which you will never come back. That's perdition. Okay. What does that, and I'm giving you the book so you can find it. What does Daniel asked what a beast represents, and the angel Gabriel told him. What does a beast represent in the Bible? When it's talking about a beast, in a sense that doesn't belong to the Father, not the four beasts, but these are ones that don't belong to the Father. What does a beast represent that doesn't belong to the Father? That's right. Thank you. Imar Prakash. Very good. It represents a government. It represents a kingdom, right? So this is a kingdom or a government, this beast, this nation that rises out of the bottomless pit, right? It told us in Revelation 11 that the two witnesses will be killed by the beast that rises out of the bottomless pit. So now let's go back and look at chapter 17 in its context. Okay, you ready? Let's look at chapter 17 in its context. Verse 1, I'm going to read now from verse 1 and go back to verse 8, where we saw this beast. And notice what it says. It was, and it is not, and yet it is. So think about that for a second. This government, this kingdom that rises out of the bottomless pit, it was. In other words, it used to exist. It is not, in that at this moment, it appears that it doesn't exist. And yet, even though it appears that it doesn't exist, it does exist. You'll understand better when we read it in this context. You ready? So let's start at verse 1 and go down to verse 8. And there came one of the seven angels, which had the seven vials, and talked with me, saying unto me, Come hither. I will show unto thee the judgment of the great whore that sitteth upon many waters, with whom the kings of the earth have committed fornication, and the inhabitants of the earth have been made drunk with the wine of her fornication. So he carried me away in the spirit into the wilderness, and I saw a woman sit upon a scarlet-colored beast, full of names of blasphemy, having 7 heads and 10 horns. And the woman was arrayed in purple and scarlet color, and decked with gold and precious stones and pearls, having a golden cup in her hand, full of abominations and filthiness of her fornication. And upon her forehead was a name written, mystery, Babylon the Great, the mother of harlots and abominations of the earth. And I saw the woman drunken with the blood of the saints and with the blood of the martyrs of Yahweh Shah. When I saw her, I wondered with great admiration. And the angel said unto me, wherefore didst thou marvel? I will tell thee the mystery of the woman and of the beast that carrieth her, which hath the 7 heads and the 10 horns. The beast that thou sawest was and is not, and shall ascend out of the bottomless pit and go into perdition. And they that dwell on the earth shall wonder, whose names were not written in the book of life from the foundation of the world, when they behold the beast that was and is not, and yet it is. Now, the woman was riding the beast, which means she's controlling the beast. So the woman is controlling the beast. This was in the wilderness. The word wilderness in this context is defined as a desolate area. So the woman is controlling the beast in a desolate area. In other words, in secret. The woman is controlling a government, a nation in secret. So far, so good, family? So far. So the woman is riding a government or a kingdom and is controlling this kingdom in secret. Now, the woman had names written on her forehead. The seal of Yah's people is in their forehead. The mark of Yah's people is in their forehead, and the mark of the devil's people is in their forehead. So this woman is given over to Asatan. And the first word on her forehead is mystery. The first word in her forehead is mystery. Again, operating in secret, and as Daniel says in Daniel 8, by craft. Okay, y'all got me so far. The second thing is extremely important in terms of the thing that was and is not and yet is. Very important. It says Babylon the Great. Now, let's talk about that. Let's talk about that. Where did Babylon first begin? In the Bible, what is the Babylon kingdom? How did it start? Who found it? Who discovered the Babylon kingdom? No, it wasn't Ham. It wasn't Cush, though you're close. You're close. You're very close. It was Nimrod. That's right. Cush begot Nimrod. Ham begot Cush. So it was the family of Ham from the 3 sons of Noah, but it was Nimrod specifically. Yes, y'all remember Nimrod. So Nimrod was the founder of a kingdom, and it was based in Shinar, which was the capital of Babylon. Okay? So Nimrod founded a kingdom, and Nimrod's kingdom, if you recall, they decided to build a tower. And they were going to control the earth and overcome the Most High by their tower. Remember? And the Father confounded their language and scattered them. Now, over the course of many centuries, Babylon reigned, one king after another, and then we saw Nebuchadnezzar come, and then we saw Belshazzar, and then it was the end of the Babylonian kingdom. The Babylonian kingdom, according to the Bible, ended the night Belshazzar was killed and Darius the Mede took the kingdom, right? So you had Babylon first and then the Medes and the Persians, as we recall. So now Babylon didn't exist anymore. Now, at the time of the writing of Revelation, Revelation was given to John in the 1st century. And so the Gabriel is telling John, this kingdom was Babylon and is not. There was no Babylonian kingdom at the time of John. There was a Roman Empire, right? And yet is. And yet is. So in other words, it doesn't appear that Babylon exists anymore, but it does. So now Babylon exists in secret. It's shrouded. It's a mystery, which is, let me ask you a question. Do you think we live in the kingdom of Babylon today? The kingdom that was and is not and yet is. Absolutely. And Daniel taught us who was that fourth beast from which came the little horn. Did he not? Daniel taught us who was the fourth beast from which came the little horn that would subdue all kingdoms and rule over the saints and overcome them. Who was that? That fourth empire that would rule the entire earth. Who was that fourth empire? Brother D.O., we're doing a Bible study, brother. I hear you. I'm glad. But let's move. Can I do a Bible study? Don't mess with D.O. I like D.O. I hear you, though, Alkawash. Protect the room. But D.O., come on, man. We're trying to do this thing here, man. We catch up, man. We catch up. So we know it was Rome. And we know it's the papacy. So somebody asked, is the United States the great whore? No, it's Rome. Rome is the great whore. Rome controls the beast. The United States is part of the beast. Rome controls the beast in secret, as you can see, so to speak. You don't understand, most people don't understand that Rome is controlling the United States of America. The United States of America was founded by, was discovered by Christopher Columbus on behalf of Rome. Am I lying? Or is that the truth? We were enslaved by the children of Japhet on behalf of Rome. The Belgians came and went into the continent of Africa on behalf of Rome. Right? And all of the enslavement of the Hebrews that came across the Atlantic slave trade were on behalf of Rome. And when I say Rome, I say Christopher Columbus was a Christian. Ponce de Leon was a Christian. That dude that went down into Africa from Belgium and was killing off the Hebrews was a Christian. So on behalf of Christianity, which was based in Rome at that time, y'all following me? Which is where it is a little silly, I think myself, that people of the Hebrew bloodline should be worshiping the religion of those that tried to destroy them and enslave them. I mean, it does sound a little silly, doesn't it? That we should be followers of the religion that enslaved us. I don't know if the Father would have us do that, but that's what we were doing, and that's what a lot of us still are. So, mystery. Babylon the Great, the mother of harlots and abominations of the earth. That is the top dog of all fake man-made religions. And she controls the beast, the government. And she controls it in secret. And she's the beast that was and is not and yet is, which is the kingdom of Babylon. And they say Babylon the Great on her forehead. So the beast that rises out of the bottomless pit, that kills the two witnesses, is the empire, the Babylonian kingdom that we are now in. And most people don't understand because they're looking at an individual like the Pope, right? But the Bible teaches us, Paul teaches us, we don't fight against flesh and blood, but against principalities and powers, against the rulers of the darkness of this world. Y'all got me? Against spiritual wickedness in high places. And the Bible tells us that the Gentiles and the Edomites are in high places. Yes, it does. And yes, they are. And it tells us that the Muslim was raised up to be a thorn in the side of the Edomites and the Christians. We already read that in Revelation chapter 9. Okay. So when you say spiritual wickedness and principalities, you're dealing with what? Systems. You're not dealing with individuals. You're dealing with systems. Systems of wickedness. Let me ask you all a question. If I talk about capitalism, if I talk about democracy, if I talk about Christianity, are we not dealing in religious, political, governmental systems? Yes? Are we not? If I talk about communism, if I talk about socialism, are we not dealing in systems? That's what we're talking about. Okay? So let's go back now to Revelation chapter 11. Revelation chapter 11, and we stopped at verse 7. So let's go back and look at that again now with the understanding of this beast that rises out of the bottomless pit. See, I understand this part. It's the next part that catches me. This is the next part. Because if you recall, let me ask you all a question. Elijah went into the wilderness for 3.5 years, didn't he? Elijah went into the wilderness for 3.5 years. And he came out the wilderness and stood on Mount Carmel for the Father. Right? He stood on Mount Carmel by the power of the Spirit. The Spirit said, go show yourself to Ahab. And he went and he stood for the covenant of Yah. He said, you are all standing for Baal. I alone, he said, am standing for Yah. Y'all remember? In fact, let's take a look at it real quick. This is First Kings chapter 18. 1 Kings chapter 18. First Kings chapter 18. I'm going to start at verse 22. 1 Kings chapter 18, verse 22. In fact, I'm going to start at verse 21. From verse 21 down to verse 24. Okay? This is 1 Kings chapter 18 from verse 21 down to verse 24. And I want you to notice from what we're reading who and what Elijah stood for. Okay? And Elijah came unto all the people and said, how long halt ye between two opinions? By the way, who is Elijah's audience? Who is Elijah? When he said, how long halt ye between two opinions, who is he talking to? Who is Elijah's audience when he said that? He said in verse 21, Elijah came unto all the people and said, how long halt ye between two opinions? If Yahweh be God, follow him. But if Baal, then follow him. And the people answered him not a word. That's right. He's talking to the Hebrews. His audience was just Hebrew. Okay. All right. And he said, how long are you going to go between either you with the Son God or you with the Most High Yah? Who is your God? And they didn't answer him. Okay. Verse 22. Then said Elijah, look what he said, unto the people, even I only remain a prophet of Yahweh, but Baal's prophets are 450 men. So he said, only I by myself against all of y'all. Now, later on, you would know the Father told him, no, I have 7,000 that you don't know about. That's going to come in handy in chapter 11 of Revelation. Let's keep going. Let them therefore give us 2 bullocks, and let them choose 1 bullock for themselves and cut it in pieces and lay it on wood and put no fire under. And I will dress the other bullock and lay it on wood and put no fire under. And call ye on the name of your gods, and I will call on the name of Yahweh. And the God that answers by fire, let him be God. And all the people answered and said, it is well spoken. So they said, yeah, that's a bet right there. Let's see whose God answers. Okay. Now let's skip down. Verse 30. Go from verse 30 and go down to from verse 30 down to verse 39. Okay. And Elijah said unto all the people, come near unto me. And all the people came near unto him. And he repaired the altar of Yahweh that was broken down. He repaired Yah's altar that was broken down. in verse 31. And Elijah took 12 stones, according to the number of the 12 tribes of Jacob, unto whom the word of Yahweh came, saying, Israel shall be thy name. So who was Elijah representing? He was representing the Father Yah. And he was representing the Father Yah's people, the 12 tribes. Does that make sense, y'all? See, so he was talking to the 12 tribes. He was calling them away from Baal. Catch me now, because we're going to see this in Revelation chapter 11. He was calling them away from Baal. And he said, I alone am representing the Father. And he was representing, watch this, Moses' law. Was he not? Was he not representing the law of Moses? When he said, I am not following Baal, but Yah. The first commandment of the covenant, thou shalt have no other gods before me. And he said, I am representing Father Yahweh, the God of the covenant he made to Israel. 2 tables. Let's go. In verse 32, and the stones he built an altar in the name of Yahweh, and he made a trench about the altar as great as one would contain 2 measures of seed. And he put the wood in order and cut the bullock in pieces and laid him on the wood and said, fill 4 barrels with water and pour it on the burnt sacrifice and on the wood. And he said, do it a second time. And they did it the second time. And he said, do it a third time. And they did it a third time. 3 times. And the water ran about the altar, and he filled the trench also with water. And it came to pass at the time of the offering of the evening sacrifice that Elijah the prophet came near and said, Yahweh, God of Abraham, Isaac, and of Israel, let it be known this day that thou art the Most High in Israel, and I am thy servant, and that I have done all these things at thy word. Hear me, O Yahweh, hear me, that this people may know that thou art the Most High, Yahweh, and that thou hast turned their heart back again. And the fire of Yahweh fell and consumed the burnt sacrifice and the wood and the stones and the dust and licked up the water that was in the trench. And when all the people saw it, they fell on their faces and said, Yahweh, he is God. Yahweh, he is God. Elijah was one of the 2 witnesses, and he was representing the 2 witnesses of the covenant. And he was representing Father Yah, who is the God of the covenant, the 2 witnesses. Y'all catching that so far? So now we go back to chapter 11. And this is the part that I don't understand. Now we know Messiah was killed at 3.5 years, and he rose after 3.5 days. But here, watch this. This is Revelation chapter 11 from verse 7. And I'm going to read from verse 7 down to verse 11. This is the part that confuses me a bit. I'm going to be honest. Okay, ready? Let's read. And when they shall have finished their testimony, the beast that ascended out of the bottomless pit shall make war against them and shall overcome them and kill them. So it's saying that the Babylonian kingdom is going to kill the 2 witnesses. Now, I'm not understanding if that's a spiritual thing. Like, in other words, they're shut up and they scattered and they preach no more. Or do they actually get killed? But Elijah didn't get killed, did he? Elijah didn't get killed. Let's keep reading. And their dead bodies shall lie in the street of the great city, which is spiritually called Sodom in Egypt, where also our Lord was crucified. So that's, again, that is representing I understand that. That's representing the power of the Gentiles and man-made religion. Egypt with the sun god, and Sodom and Gomorrah, well, you know what that is. And there was no God there. There were false gods. And spiritually, Rome is the same thing. And Messiah was crucified by the Romans. That part I get. But to kill them, that's the part. Kill them, that's the part. Okay, wait a minute. In verse 9, and they of the people and kindreds and tongues and nations shall see their dead bodies 3 days and a half. Messiah was in the tomb 3 days and a half, and shall not suffer their dead bodies to be put in graves. See, Messiah was in the tomb, but they're saying that these 2 witnesses will not even be buried to be raised from the tomb, because they don't be lying in the street. So I don't understand this. This is a little bit, I understand it's representing disrespect of Father Yah, of his word, of his witnesses. It definitely is a disrespect, obviously, of the testimony. But the form of it is what, got me a little bit. And that's why I'm just being honest with you. But then verse 10, and they that dwell upon the earth shall rejoice over them. And that makes sense. If you recall, the scribes and Pharisees were rejoicing when Messiah died. Let him come down from the cross. If he be all that, we'll believe him then. You see, they were acting all like that, right? And make merry and shall send gifts one to another, because these two prophets tormented them that dwell in the earth. Then verse 11, after 3 days and a half, the spirit of life from Yahweh entered into them, and they stood upon their feet, and great fear fell upon them which saw them. Okay, so 3 days and a half, again, Messiah rose 3.5 days later. So I'm not understanding if this is a representation of 3.5 days of the 144,000 being in the wilderness. I'm not understanding that. I'm just being honest with you. I understand the 3.5 year period of preaching in sackcloth, because that makes sense. Because Messiah did it, Elijah did it, and 144,000 going to do it. That makes perfect sense, right? Elijah disappeared for 3.5 years. Moses disappeared for 40 years, if you recall. And he came back after 40 years at age 80, and Father used him to lead his people out of Egypt. But the 3.5 days later, that's the thing that gets me. I'm just telling you, okay? That's the only thing I'm telling you. That's the thing that confuses me. And then after that, I understand the rest of it. Look what it says here from verse 12. And they heard a great voice from heaven saying, come up hither. And they ascended up to heaven in a cloud, and their enemies beheld them. In the same hour, there was a great earthquake, and 1/10 part of the city fell. And in the earthquake were slain of men 7,000. That's 7,000 again. He said, I have 7,000 that have not bowed down the knee to Baal. So in other words, there's a group that's representing people that are called by the two witnesses that will repent before the resurrection of the righteous and the ascension to the sea of glass. So they were slain of men 7,000. Okay. It says, and their enemies beheld them, and the remnant were affrighted and gave glory to the God of heaven. See, so you could understand the 7,000. Elijah thought he was by himself, and 7,000. He said, no, I got 7,000 that you don't know about. The 144,000 will be preaching to the earth, and they think that they're by themselves, and there's going to be a 7,000 that's going to be affrighted and give glory to the God of heaven. That makes sense. But the dead part, the part dead for 3.5 days, that's the part I'm not sure about, and I don't want to guess about it, but y'all saw it. That's all I'm saying. Y'all saw it. Y'all saw it. So the two witnesses are representing, yes, Moses and Elijah, representing the two tables of the covenant and representing the message of the 144,000 as Messiah bore the message for 3.5 years. Okay, now that part I get. And the worship in the temple I get, because we are worshiping in the most holy place right now in Messiah, right? Remember what Paul said, we have been chosen. He has predestinated us in him. So that makes sense. So we are now in the most holy place in Messiah, and the Father's looking at us through the righteousness that Messiah represents, and he's perfecting us so that when Messiah is finished his high priestly ministry, we are sealed in perfect righteousness, and the Father will be able to look upon us. And that's why Messiah said, who will be able to stand before the Son of Man? And that was the question again before the 144,000. Who shall be able to stand? Well, 144,000 will, because of the Father's righteousness having been sealed upon their foreheads. That makes sense. It's that 3.5 day death that I can't get right now. That's what I'm saying. That's that 3.5 day death I can't get. One day, one of y'all gonna get it. I don't know when. Maybe I'll get it, but the Father will have to explain it to me, because I'm not sure about that. I'm just telling you, okay? And that, my friends, are the two witnesses and the sixth trumpet. So we have a message by the power of the Messiah that's going to reveal the Messiah's return to the 144,000. The message is a message of prophecy, which will be given. We'll be worshiping to the Father in the most holy. He'll measure us with the plumb line, like Akawanya Banya brought out, and we will be measured in perfection. But the rest of the court and everything else is given to the Gentiles. They'll tread the holy city or tread the holiness of the message underfoot 42 months as we, and how are they doing that? Y'all know what's going on right now in the Middle East between the state of Israel and the Palestinians. Who's taking what side? Y'all seeing it, see? So it's you're seeing that that's happening, okay? You're seeing this happening already. So we are being sealed to give a message by which there will be a response of a remnant that's still in Babylon. You and I have been called out of Babylon early. And now we're being prepared to give a message that's going to be coming extremely soon. Like we're in 2024 now. The end of the year, really the end of 2023 is for us, and in April. And so you go 3.5 years, you're in 2027 on the Day of Atonement, right? There you go. So it's all coming down quick. And we're going to see things that that the world ain't seen since the Bible told us about. Praise the Most High. It's coming. Well, brethren, in spite of what I didn't know, I pray the Most High blessed you with this study. Tomorrow we'll go into the 7th trumpet. It's going to be interesting. May the Most High bless you and keep you. May he cause his face to shine upon you and be gracious unto you. May he lift up his countenance upon you and give you peace. Yes, thank you. It was beautiful being baptized by the Hebrews today. I was really blessed. I was really blessed today. It was a great day. And y'all know, well, I bought a little beverage to celebrate. Praise the Most High. So we're going to be all good today. Praise the Most High. Yes, Pops is doing very well, man. He was up, today. I have to give y'all this little story. So today, there's this machine. It's a manual machine. It works with compression. It's called a Hoyer lift. If you're in healthcare, you know what a Hoyer lift is. A Hoyer lift is used to get a person out of bed that cannot get out of bed. So you put like a net under them, and then the Hoyer lift lifts them up and moves them almost like a construction machine is taking dirt. You lift them up, and then you place them into the wheelchair with the Hoyer lift. Okay, my father hates the Hoyer lift. I mean, he hates it. So before he would just make noise, faces like this and get an ugly face, right? But today, you see, when my father means business, he gives me a look, and he'll say something like, "I said no." And when he does that, don't go against it. I learned that coming up. So today, to show you how good he's feeling, I'm lifting him in the Hoyer lift. I have to do it myself, and I need 2 people watching him, make sure he don't fall. It's fairly secure though. So I'm lifting him in the Hoyer lift because we got him a new mattress today, an air mattress. So I had to have the man put the new air mattress in. So I had put him in the Hoyer lift. We put him in the wheelchair, and he was like, whoa, wait, what you doing like that, right? So I put him in the chair, and then we got him out, me, my wife, and the nurse, we got him out into the living room, and the man put the bed in. So then we had to put him back in bed. So we put him back in the Hoyer lift. Wait, what y'all doing? Wait, right? So we got into the bedroom, and so I had the Hoyer lift ready to get him out the wheelchair so I could put him back in the bed. And he said, no. And I said, Pop, we got to do it. He said, I said, no. and then he stopped everybody. He said, I said, no. That's what I knew. I said, oh my God, he is feeling good. And today, for the first time, I think it's been at least 6 months, he ate chicken. He ate baked chicken today, and he ate some potato salad. He's been eating pureed food since he had the stroke. Today he ate chicken. And so he's feeling a lot better, man. I told him the other day, and now y'all know I will get very emotional when I talk about my daddy, but I'm reconciled. Now, I'm not saying I won't get emotional in the future, but like the other day, I sat down and he said, why are you going through all this trouble with all these nurses? Because I got nurses coming in and out of there every day, all day, every day, right? So I said, Pop, I know you're going to die. I know you told me you're going to die. But I said, as long as you're alive, I'm going to get you the best care possible. I said, so don't fuss. I'm going to be having nurses in here. I'm going to have doctors in here. I'm going to do everything to make you as comfortable as possible. Yeah, you're going to die, but I ain't just going to let you shrivel up and die. And he looked at me and I said, no, I'm not going to do that. I said, what you expect me to just let you shrivel up and die and then just walk away? What you think? You know, that ain't never happening. And so he just looked at me, but he caught what I said. So I'm praising the Most High. I'm just happy that he's happy. He loves the house. He likes where he's at. It's a very nice little neighborhood, man. And yeah, so he's getting better. And I want to thank you all for your prayers on behalf of my pops. Really praise the Most High. It's proof that the Father's answering our prayers. We're not the ones whose prayers were thrown back to the earth. Praise the Most High. He's hearing our prayers because we are predestinated in Messiah. Praise the Most High. Praise the Most High. So I'm very happy. And yes, my daddy's doing good, and I'm happy about that. It wore me out a little bit, man. I started feeling sick tonight, but I almost didn't come on. Honestly, you ask my wife, I almost didn't feel like coming on. But here we are, praise the Most High, and I'm getting ready to have a little celebration beverage. Excuse me, just celebrate a little bit. Praise the Most High. That also helped my little infirmity. Praise the Most High. Because my brothers baptized me today. It was all good. Praise the Most High. So may the Most High bless you and keep you. May he cause his face to shine upon you and be gracious unto you. May he lift up his countenance upon you and give you peace. Shalom, brother.